Have you ever wondered what set the world on a collision course for the catastrophe known as World War I? In the dawn of the 20th century, the globe was a chessboard of imperial ambitions. Powerful nations, fueled by industrial might and territorial desires, were in a race for global dominance. Europe was a tangled web of alliances, a maze of treaties and pacts, designed to maintain a delicate balance of power. But beneath this veneer of order, the undercurrents of nationalistic fervor and economic competition were steadily escalating, straining relationships amongst these nations to their breaking point. Yet it wasn't the grand strategies or imperial ambitions that lit the fuse of this catastrophic war. Instead, it was the fatal shots fired by a young nationalist in Sarajevo that shattered the precarious peace. In this cauldron of rising tensions, a single spark was enough to ignite the Great War. In 1914, that spark came in the form of an assassin's bullet. A single shot in Sarajevo set the world ablaze. The man behind the trigger, a young Bosnian Serb named Gavrilo Princip. His target, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. This assassination was not just a political statement, but a catalyst that set off a series of events, a chain reaction that would plunge the world into war. Austria-Hungary, angered by the audacious assault, demanded justice. Backed by Germany, they issued an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia, allied with Russia, stood their ground. The dominoes toppled as alliances were activated, treaties invoked, and nations were pulled into the fray. Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, the Central Powers, were pitted against France, Russia, and the United Kingdom, the Allies. The world was now at war, and it was a war unlike any seen before. From the trenches of the Western Front to the seas of the Atlantic, the war raged on an unprecedented scale. The First World War was marked by battles that were as colossal as they were brutal, with each one serving as a turning point in this global conflict. In September of 1914, the Allies halted the German advance in a significant clash known as the First Battle of the Marne. This battle, fought near the Marne River in France, saw the first use of trench warfare, which would become a defining feature of the war. The Gallipoli campaign of 1915 was another pivotal moment. Here, the Allies attempted to control the sea route from Europe to Russia. Their failure resulted in heavy casualties and marked a significant victory for the Ottoman Empire. In the summer of 1916, the Battle of the Somme unfolded. It was one of the bloodiest battles in human history, with over 1 million casualties. Despite the heavy losses, it was a strategic victory for the Allies, weakening the German army and shifting the momentum of the war. The Battle of Verdun, fought in 1916, was the longest battle of the war. For nearly 10 months, French and German forces clashed in a deadly stalemate. The battle is remembered for its immense cost in lives and resources, symbolizing the futility and devastation of trench warfare. In April of 1917, the United States entered the war. This was a major turning point, as fresh American troops and resources helped to tip the balance in favor of the Allies. These battles and events were not just isolated incidents of conflict. They were turning points that influenced strategies, shaped nations, and shifted global power dynamics. Each confrontation, each decision, each loss, and each victory played a part in sculpting the course of the war. These battles and events shaped the course of the war, leading to a world forever changed. In this global conflict, a number of key figures emerged, their decisions and actions shaping the course of history. Let's start with Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States. He initially advocated for neutrality, but the relentless German submarine warfare against American ships led him to ask Congress to declare war on Germany in April of 1917. Wilson's vision for peace, articulated in his 14 points, was instrumental in shaping the post-war world and laid the groundwork for the League of Nations, a precursor to the United Nations. Across the Atlantic, in the heart of Europe, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany was making his own mark on the war. The last German emperor and king of Prussia, Wilhelm's policies, particularly his aggressive foreign stance and his decision to support Austria-Hungary in its conflict with Serbia, were significant factors in the outbreak of the war. His abdication in November of 1918 effectively ended the war for Germany. In the East, another player was rising, Vladimir Lenin. As leader of the Bolshevik Party, he played a crucial role in the Russian Revolution of 1917, which led to Russia's exit from the war. Lenin's decision to sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany ended Russia's participation in World War I and allowed him to focus on establishing a communist state. His leadership would have profound implications for the rest of the 20th century. These three men, each a leader in his own right, made decisions that would not only determine the outcome of the war, but also set the stage for the world that emerged from it. Wilson's vision for a peaceful world order, Wilhelm's aggressive policies that led to conflict, and Lenin's revolutionary ideas that changed the face of Russia, each left an indelible mark on history. These individuals not only shaped the war but also the future of the world. World War I was a war of innovation, a war where modern technology met old tactics with deadly results. Imagine a world where warfare was dominated by cavalry charges, bayonet assaults, and trench sieges. Now picture this world suddenly invaded by the roar of machine guns, the rumble of tanks, the buzz of airplanes, and the silent, deadly spread of chemical weapons. This was the reality of World War I, a time when technological advancements turned the battlefield into a place of unprecedented horror and destruction. The machine gun, a weapon capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute, turned the art of war on its head. No longer could soldiers simply charge at an enemy line. Instead, they found themselves pinned down, unable to move without risking a hail of bullets. Machine guns transformed the battlefield into a deadly game of cat and mouse, where survival depended on strategy, stealth, and sheer luck. Then came the tanks, hulking beasts of steel that could traverse any terrain, shrug off bullets, and crush obstacles in their path. These mechanical monsters gave armies the power to break through enemy lines, rendering traditional defenses obsolete. The introduction of tanks marked a shift in warfare, heralding a new era of mechanized combat. The skies, too, were not spared from the onslaught of technology. Airplanes, once a novelty, quickly became a vital tool of war. These winged machines allowed for reconnaissance, bombing raids, and even aerial combat, giving birth to a new theater of war. But perhaps the most terrifying advancement was the use of chemical weapons. Gases such as chlorine and mustard gas were unleashed on the battlefield, causing unimaginable suffering and death. These weapons marked a grim milestone in human history, as warfare became not just about killing, but also about causing prolonged and agonizing pain. These advancements redefined warfare, marking the dawn of a new era. World War I was not just a clash of nations, but a clash of old and new, a grim testament to the destructive power of technology when wielded with reckless abandon. In the end, it was a war that changed the world, a war that showed us the terrifying potential of human ingenuity. The war ended in 1918, but its impact was far from over. The Treaty of Versailles, signed the following year, was the first step in addressing the aftermath. This peace treaty, however, was riddled with controversies. It held Germany responsible for the war, imposing heavy reparations that crippled its economy and sowed the seeds of resentment among its people. But the post-war shifts weren't confined to Germany. The world map was redrawn with the collapse of empires. The Russian, Austro-Hungarian, German, and Ottoman empires disintegrated, giving birth to numerous new nations. These changes were not without conflicts, as borders were contested and nationalistic sentiments surged. Amidst these transformations, an international body was conceived to maintain world peace, the League of Nations. Yet, despite its noble intentions, the League was fundamentally flawed. Its inability to enforce its decisions, coupled with the absence of key powers like the United States, weakened its influence. It was a precursor to the United Nations, but its own lifespan was cut short by the Second World War. The socio-political landscape too underwent dramatic changes. Women who had stepped into workforce roles during the war began demanding equal rights, leading to the rise of the suffragette movement in many countries. Meanwhile, the horrors of the war led to a disillusionment with traditional institutions and values, sparking off the lost generation and the modernist movement in literature and arts. The war also triggered significant shifts in economic power. Europe, once the epicenter of global wealth, was devastated. In contrast, the United States, relatively unscathed, emerged as a new economic powerhouse. This shift further fueled tensions in an already volatile world. World War I was more than just a conflict. It was a catalyst that reshaped the world. It changed maps, sparked social revolutions, altered economic dynamics, and gave rise to new political structures. World War I ended, but it left a lasting impact on the world, setting the stage for even greater conflict. As we reflect on World War I, we must remember the lessons it taught us. The world stood on the precipice of change, the scale of which was unimaginable. The outbreak of the war, triggered by a complex web of alliances, nationalism, and political intrigue, reshaped the global landscape. The battles fought were brutal and often marked turning points, etching names like Verdun and the Somme into the annals of history. Key figures emerged, their roles significant, their decisions impacting millions. Technological advancements, while groundbreaking, introduced a new level of destruction. And in the aftermath, the world grappled with the cost of conflict, the loss of a generation, and the need for peace. The Great War, as it was known, was a stark reminder of the human capacity for both creation and destruction. By remembering, we honor those who lived through it and ensure their stories continue to resonate. World War I was a turning point in human history, a stark reminder of the cost of conflict and the value of peace.